And I would like to thank you for this presentation and to join you in thanking Hubert Danso for the excellent arrangements by the Africa investor of this event. And Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, allow me to acknowledge the presence and to welcome His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo, the 12th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and one of the founding fathers of the new Partnership for Africa Development Initiative, NIPAD. President Obasanjo is also a respected leader in the field of peace and security, as well as Africa's advancement. And he is a member of the Africa Progress Panel, APP, and continued to serve Africa in many other capacities, as you know, the latest of which was as special representative of the Secretary General on Congo, and he did a great results. I would like also to welcome my colleague and friend, the Distinguished Director General of UNIDO, Mr. Yumkela, who is going to join us in that panel today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, since this is the first time that I am addressing this gathering in my capacity as a Special Advisor of the Secretary General on Africa, let me first seize this opportunity and commend the Africa Investor for this great initiative that brings together African leaders and the business community in Wall Street, the heart of America's financial system. I am honored to be a partner of Africa Investor in this initiative in particular. Africa suffers a considerable image problem, and overcoming this problem will be critical to mobilizing investment, both domestic and foreign, for the continent's development. This meeting affords African leaders and all of us the opportunity to bridge the perception gap by telling stories of new Africa, an emerging Africa that is recording the world's fastest growth rate, a continent that is open for business and trade. Africa has traditionally been neglected by international financial markets. However, investors today are beginning to look at Africa differently, as socio-economic indicators are steadily changing. They realize that Africa is no longer the basket case it once was perceived to be, but a continent full of great potential and limitless opportunities. Africa today offers the world's most promising growth potential. If we look at the period from 2000 to 2010, the continent recorded one of the most impressive economic growth rates in decades, with GDP growth averaging 5.7%, more than double from the previous decade. Today, 7 out of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. According to the International Monetary Fund, over the next 5 years, the continent is projected to witness the world's fastest growth, even surpassing Asia. This, coupled with its abundant resources, a growing middle-class population, rapid urbanization, and being among the world's highest rates of return on investment, all these make Africa a lucrative investment destination no investor can afford to ignore. Companies from emerging markets, notably China, India, and Brazil, are showing increased appetite for investing in Africa and are reaping benefits as well. FDI inflows from China have grown considerably, accounting to 16% of total FDI into the region in 2008, up from a mere 1% in 2003. Similarly, look at Africa report export to China, which grew from $3.8 billion in 2000 to $55.9 billion in 2011. Despite the huge investment opportunities that exist in the continent and the enormous progress made by the African countries in recent years to improve investment climate and overcome conflicts, Africa received only 5.5% of global FDI inflows in 2011. This is due to the lingering negative perceptions of the continent among potential investors. According to Ernst & Young, Africa's attractiveness survey, many investors still view Africa as being a more difficult place to do business in comparison to other emerging markets. In the meantime, the World Bank's most recent Ease of Doing Business rankings ranked 14 African countries ahead of Russia, 16 ahead of Brazil, and 17 ahead of India. Similarly, in regard to corruption, which is often cited as one of the factors deterring investors into Africa, the continent fares better, with 14 African countries ranking higher than India and 35 higher than Russia in Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. So as the new Africa rises full of hope and possibility, it becomes more imperative that Africa tells its own story, rebrand itself, and demystify stereotypes. Equally important is the need to address some of the remaining challenges undermining Africa's competitiveness. One of the serious challenges which constrain accelerated development is the lack of infrastructure. However, the investment requirement for bridging the infrastructure deficit is such that it cannot be easily mobilized from domestic resources, but requires substantial investment from international capital markets. Investment in the transport, energy, and communication networks will strengthen regional integration and lead to creation of large markets with greater critical mass. This would also enhance the continent's attractiveness to foreign investment. Overcoming the infrastructure deficit will be critical to unleashing Africa's growth potential. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn to the question of how the United Nations is supporting African countries and institutions to improve their investment climate, encourage cooperation on intra-African investment, and accelerate their development. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, mandated me to strengthen the advocacy and support of the new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, as the African Union's flagship program for the continent's socio-economic development revival. Through our policy analysis work, my office has endeavored to raise awareness of the considerable progress African countries have made in recent years in terms of accelerating economic growth, reducing poverty, and addressing conflicts. Through its convening power and working with other stakeholders outside the United Nations, including academia and the business communities, the Office of the Special Advisor on Africa has organized events to synthesize them to the importance of Africa as an emerging growth frontier and the unprecedented trade and investment opportunities it represents. Through its regional program in Africa, the United Nations is strengthening its partnership with the African Union and its NEPAD agency, the African Development Bank, the regional economic communities, to promote regional integration and cooperation. Furthermore, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, has been working with NEPAD, OECD Investment Climate Facility, to strengthen the capacity of the African countries to design and implement reforms that improve their business climate, as well as raising awareness of Africa as an important investment destination. Through its capacity building program on capital market development, ECA, along with the African Union and the African Development Bank, strengthened their cooperation to support the development of stock exchanges. They identified the lack of liquidity arising from the small nature of many national stock exchanges as a constraint to attracting foreign investment. Through exchange of experience and lessons learned, the program has underscored the importance of a regional approach to capital market development in Africa. Other parts of the United Nations system, such as the World Bank, are supporting African countries in improving the business environment. Through the Ease of Doing Business, the World Bank helps African countries design and implement policies aimed at addressing bottlenecks that impede business development. With the change of Africa's economic and business landscape, combined with various United Nations initiatives to promote business opportunities in Africa, I am confident that the continent will soon be a promising destination for higher return investment in all sectors and a land of opportunity. Africa is on the move and rapidly emerging. Let us all work together to maintain and scale up the momentum.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.